I am Josephus Thompson III, director of the Poetry Project, host and creator of the Poetry Cafe, and I am a mud runner. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a hopeless dreamer. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an engineer. Uh, I am an underdog, and I appreciate being that because it always drives me to push and to build and to create more. Um, I'm simply just trying to be the best me I can be every single day. I think that um, my students always ask me, how do I make the poem better? And they're always expecting me to tell them, more similes or more bars here or whatever. But my answer is always the same. The more of yourself you put into the poem, the better it's going to be. Um, the more of yourself you give to the world, the better off the world is going to be. And so our greatest challenge as artists is to continually uh, define and understand who we are. And so, no matter what title you give yourself, at the end of the day, you can only be you. And I think when we start spending more time on ourselves versus more time trying to be like what we see or what we experience, we're all going to be better off. I have a background in industrial engineering. So I went to North Carolina A&T State University, study industrial engineering, and now I do full-time poetry. So that's always an interesting combination. But I think I wrote some in high school. My parents actually framed some of my work, like from the fourth grade. I won like a fourth place ribbon for like an essay contest, and I really am a firm believer that positive reinforcement works. Because at that point I felt like I was a good writer. I didn't get first or second or even third, but my parents acknowledged that. They framed my work and put my ribbon up like it was a first place ribbon, and that kind of stuck with me. In high school, we had to study poetry and write some things, and um, I remember teacher telling me this was a pretty good poem, but I didn't really see it as poetry. In school when you're reading Maya and Frost, the way things are written and read don't really sound like how we talk today. So I didn't really see what I was doing as poetry. But again, just positive reinforcement. Again, letting people that you had a good thing going. And I guess my biggest moment where I really thought that I was doing something with poetry was we had this multicultural day in high school, and some people sang, some people danced, and I wrote a poem, and I remember everybody enjoying it. It's nothing like being on a stage and people clapping and applauding performance, and you're like, they like me, they really like me, that was really good. And I never forget somebody asked me, did you copyright your poem yet? It's a great poem, you copyright it. And I was like, no, that is a great idea, and I ran to the copy machine and photocopied copies of the poem for everyone. So I know it's not what copyright means now, but in that moment, I could have swore that it meant photocopy. Everybody needs a copy of my poem. So that's pretty much the beginning of how it started. I graduated, and like everyone else, I was looking for the place where you turn in your degree in order to get a job. And I couldn't find that place. I applied. I put myself out there in several instances to try to work, and it just wasn't happening. Um, Monsters.com was huge then. You could apply for like 100 jobs in like 10 minutes, but you also get turned down 100 times in that same 10 minutes. So yeah, I remember it's been on there every day for like a month or two and not getting anything back. Second month got a couple interviews, and it was like first, second, third interviews, but never landing the job. I couldn't figure out why. It's like most people, when you are at a loss in life and you don't know what to do next, you pray about it. And so I did that, and somebody suggested that I read Rick Warren's Purpose Driven Life. Um, and I did that, and I actually wrote this poem called Purpose once I finished that book. And when I started focusing on what was right in front of me, versus chasing what I thought I was supposed to be doing, uh, started to make more sense. Things started to become easier. And so started performing a little bit more. Somebody asked me how much I charged to perform at their church. And I was amazed. I was like, wow, you want to pay me to do a poem? They do that in real life? Um, because at that point, all I knew was that, you wrote a book, and people might check out the library or, be on the Times bestseller, but I never thought about performance, spoken word being something that you could actually get paid for. So I went home, did some research, and I was again amazed at how much people got paid to speak. So I started Googling, how much was charged for performance, and how many artists, made their money from performance, not from record sales or album sales, but from the actual performance, you know. And I did that one show, and at the end of that show, somebody else came to me and said, "Well, can you do my church or my performance or my venue?" And I started walking through the doors that were opening versus knocking on doors, trying to open them every day. And 10, 15 years later, here I am. That's a short version. Influences for me have just been, life. I think as an artist, especially as a poet, you start writing from a place of selfishness. You're writing for yourself. I can admit the first few times I wrote was probably for an assignment. When I started writing more poetry, it was really for myself. To deal with or cope with whatever I was going through, whether it was love or frustration or purpose or trying to find myself. My work many times was for me, and then what you found with getting to a platform and sharing your work with other people, that it was not a linear experience, that every person, human being in this life experiences those same things: love, hate, frustration, loss, peace, happiness, purpose. And you had the opportunity to be a voice for so many other people, and sharing your work, got a chance to connect to other people. And I think that, life and art is about connection. And when you find that vessel that works for you, um, it's important that you continue, to use it. I mean, for some, it could be Frisbee camp or painting or double Dutch, whatever it is that floats your boat, whatever it is that connects you to people, I think is important. And lots of times you don't have any inspiration. I've learned to even write from a point of being lost or being depressed. And again, those poems are some of the most powerful because they're written from an honest place and people identify with them. And so I think the inspiration and influence part is easy. I think when it gets difficult is when you start doing it on a contract basis and people give you an assignment and say, I need you to write on, Black History Month. I need you to write this poem about my company Volvo. I need you to write on this, and then you have to search for the inspiration and find the connection. But I think writing, communicating with yourself is probably the easiest thing to do. You just have to not be afraid to share it. Yeah. So I think influence is everywhere. So right now I am working on trying to figure out how to scale my business um, virtually. And so, what I do, a lot of what I do is classroom teaching. So I get a chance to work with students K through 12 with regards to, how to use poetry in the classroom. And, believe it or not, it's probably 80% of my income is teaching. The last 20%, maybe performing. But I learned quite some time ago that, poetry is part of the ELA, English Language Arts curriculum, um, for middle schoolers, for all schoolers really. But the seventh grade start learning their poetic devices, similes, metaphors, onomatopoeia, And if you can explain that in layman's terms, provide examples, and show them how it relates to not only the classroom and work, but to their life, then it makes the concept stuff easier to connect with. And so I just finished working on a project with GCS, some professional development for teachers, and it took me forever to do it because I was talking to myself on this camera. So teaching a class room full of people is fine. There's interaction, there's energy, but actually having to go through slides like a PowerPoint presentation and talk about, what you do, what you can do in your classroom to a computer screen for an hour was just killing me. Like it seemed so mundane. So I just finally had to let go and just go for it. Be silly, sing, snap. Just put as much energy into it as I could to make it work. So I got through that. Yesterday, I got a chance to perform with Fayetteville State. It's one of our long-term contracts. We do their welcome week for their students coming in the first week of campus. And so the Poetry Cafe is an event that I host. It's basically an open mic. So we invite students to the stage to perform, but I host, have a few aces up my sleeve that I bring along with us, just to keep the energy moving. We have a live band, and we basically, keep the rhythm of the evening moving, but people sing, juggle, play instruments, and it's a huge event because it gives students a chance to get to know each other outside the classroom, outside of just standing bypassing each other on the street, because you're freshman, you don't really know anybody. So the more events you have to meet people, the better. And this event has been huge for their campus as far as just people getting together, laughing, singing along, and meeting people. So this year had to be virtual. And I was like, I'm used to 500 kids in a room, all singing, whatever song we decide to sing to break up the monotony. So I was challenged again to figure out how I can entertain students virtually from sitting in this chair at home. So we introduced some trivia questions, and we had some songs that we played, from the laptop. We, of course, had some aces up the sleeve. We had people change their backgrounds. We had a dance off in the middle. Like, it was just randomness that we did to make it happen. So now we're talking about, can we potentially now network with other college campuses in the region? So typically, we'll do about 10 to 15 schools per semester, but I can't have an A&T and Fayetteville State crowd meshed together. But now I can. So I can say, hey, would you be interested in hosting an event with, Fayetteville State Aggies and having the best MCs and the best poets perform, not a competition, but more of a showcase. But you can then see, and collaborate potentially with artists from another campus. And so that's an idea that we're working on doing, which hopefully will be big this semester because everybody's looking for some type of virtual entertainment. And so I was writing a post before we started this interview, and I was just, saying it's been a great week. And, keep in mind that every obstacle is a chance to create opportunity. Every problem is a chance to create a solution. And if you look at, life that way, especially as an entrepreneur, we don't have a choice, but to figure out how to make it work. Then this is when you really get the chance to succeed and separate yourself from the norm. So yeah, and the trivia went over so well last night. I was thinking about having a completely separate night just for the students to play this trivia game. So that's pretty much what I'm working on now. Oh, and we just started this thing with RCC that's called Poetry During the Pandemic. And so Rockingham Community College, I was supposed to perform there in the spring, but of course the Rona hit in March. And so the show got pushed back. And then it got pushed back again because the schools never reopened. And so I decided to offer them an opportunity for a writing workshop for 3 weeks, and then have students perform the 4th week. And they opened it up to the entire community. And just a chance for people to connect again about what they're going through during the pandemic. Good times, bad times, sad times, happy times, jokes, animals, whatever. And so we had started off with some prompts the first night. We had a guy sign in from DC. He saw it on Eventbrite. And so immediately the first night it became bigger than Rockingham County, bigger than I could have imagined, because initially it was supposed to be just on a college campus, in a room with kids from that university. Then it became a community. And now, we got people from other states that are signing on to be part of the workshop. So this virtual opportunity really, really gives a chance to open up the floodgates to people being able to connect in ways they couldn't connect before. Well, they probably could, but didn't really think about connecting that way before. And so those are three of the big projects that are on my plate right now. The pandemic workshops, the Poetry Cafe, collabing with other college campuses, and then the GCS work for professional development. The pandemic has affected me lots of different ways. First and foremost, it's got me in the house, wearing a mask when I go out of the house, which is new. Again, being a performing artist and touring, quite a bit, and working in schools quite a bit, it completely, uprooted my summer. And I do a lot of work with summer camps. I had this huge event planned with UNCG this summer. We were going to do our first ever Gate City Youth camp, and I've been coaching the Gate City Youth Slam team for the past. This is our 10th year. So we take students from local schools, and we have a big slam in April. And the slam is basically a poetry competition. So students compete, and the top 6 make the team every year, and then we travel in July to Brave New Voices, which is the International Poetry Festival. And this year they would have been in DC. Yeah, I think they were in Houston last year, and Vegas the year before that, Cali the year before that. So we've been in Chicago, Philadelphia, all over the country with youth from Greensboro that got a chance to travel because of the power of their voices. So what we found that was happening was that we'd have 50 kids that would slam in April for a spot on the team. The top 6 would make it. We'd say, hey, stick around for the summer camps, come to the practices, get better, but maybe 10 out of those 50 would stick around because they were in it to win it. There was nothing, no more carrot for them besides practicing and getting better. So we would lose all of those potential poets and artists. And so in this 10th year, we said, hey, can we do something similar to the festival here? How could that work? So I built some potential networking opportunities with UNCG, teaching some stuff there, work with the school system. So I said, hey, we want to offer this space to 100 kids from across the state of North Carolina. And what would it cost to rent a space here at UNCG to perform in for 2 days? Could we feed them on campus? Could we use dorm rooms? And the answer was yes. So we had it all set up to sponsor 100 kids on campus. We had gotten the fees down to like maybe $150 per student. They were going to come in on a Friday afternoon, go through orientation, have workshops, late night events, compete on Saturday, and then they would return home on Sunday. And so it was like 48 hours. But they had dorm rooms, they had t-shirts, swag bags, open mics, poetry slams, and so got a chance for us to really do some work with more students here, after learning over this past decade what it took to do that kind of thing elsewhere. And the Rona stole it. So I was kind of heartbroken about that. This being our 10th year anniversary, and it was clearly different. We ended up having to have our slam virtually, which was new. So that was crazy. So of course, the pandemic started in March, and National Poetry Month was in April. So it just started a roller coaster of just consistent, immediate, demanding change. And so just had to start thinking outside the box. So it was definitely a period of downtime, like, what are we going to do? What can we do? What options do we have? the Poetry Cafe, which is hosted the Triad Stage every second Saturday, immediately became something virtual. So people were like, "Are you still doing it?" And ironically, we did the Poetry Cafe weekly, um, March, April, May, June, just because people were just stuck in the house and were like, well, can we do it more than once a month, and so we had 30, 50 people online, you know, and some weeks there was no poetry. It was just conversation, just what am I going through, just what's happening. And so, yeah, the pandemic definitely changed my regimen of work and how I could create, because I still had to pay the bills. And so finding a way to make that still work was interesting. um, Emotionally, you know, the entire Black Lives Matter movement, um, caught fire during the pandemic, and I think there's several different reasons why. But I think, you know, definitely things that have happened. Um, but the fact that people were kind of forced to sit and now watch it without having the distraction of work, or distraction of going out, having to really sit with it. I think more people got a chance to really, really get a chance to see what was happening in this country. um, and that again, during the pandemic was difficult, especially for a black man and a runner. At that, my wife didn't even want me running for a couple of weeks, because of what happened to Ahmad. Um, so changed my workout regimen. Changed some of the freedoms that I had, um, even though I wasn't being directly, affected by it. Um, I became directly affected by it. you know, so not only did it affect my business, but it also affected my family life, and this whole movement of Black life. So um, yeah, and I mean there've been some great things that come out of it also, with having the morphia business. Who would want to be able to make money from home versus having to go out? But you like to have the choice to do so, and right now we still have that choice. So it's forced us to either sink or swim, and I am choosing to swim. I don't think there's anything hard about making art once you understand what it is. I think the difficulty comes in when your ego comes into play, because you want people to like your art. You want people to accept your art. Um, and as an artist, you also want to be able to monetize your art. So those things are things that take energy, and that are difficult at times. Um, but I think the making of the actual product, something that you enjoy, I think that is the key to art. And what I tell all people, is the trick is finding something that you would do for free, right? And then doing it so well that people are willing to pay you for it. So, I was writing poetry before anybody would offer me $1, and I'll probably never stop writing. I would wake up in the middle of the night and jot some notes. Like, so the writing part is the easy part. I think the difficult part comes in now. You have to figure out, how do you get more YouTube followers, and how do you get more IG followers, and how do you turn this poem into a video, into a song, into a coloring book? That's where the difficulty comes in, and the creativity comes in, and the processes come in, and how you make your art understandable, relatable for the populations and the masses. Because uh, while it is, like I talked earlier about, selfish in the beginning, at the end of the day, if I provide a product that you don't understand or cannot connect to, then I have to go back to the drawing board. If I'm trying to communicate an idea of love, and you are only getting hate and confusion from it, then I did something wrong. Like, I have to go back and figure out how to communicate this idea of love, to you. Um, and that part becomes difficult, because communication, uh, depending on who you're talking to, you need to learn a new language, Spanish or Greek. People understand things differently depending on the tone you use, and the primers you put on your art. So I think that's the difficult part, is being flexible, and accepting the fact that art is fluid, and sometimes it has to change. Your initial idea may not get across the point that you initially wanted to do. So I think the art making is easy. I think the acceptance and the monetizing part is the difficult part. Industrial engineering is all about efficiency. It's about time management. And so now I tell people that I engineer communities and ideas. But the engineering background definitely plays a role because it's not about who's the best poet. It's about who is the most consistent poet. You know, when I'm making calls, sending emails to get ready for my spring tour, I know that I have to call 100 schools if I want 10. That's numbers. Those are factual. That's factual information. Like you're not gonna get 10 from the first 10 that you call. You're not gonna get call 20 and get 10. Like you have to constantly in order to build your portfolio and find more contacts, you have to put yourself out there more, which means more rejections. But I know that in order to get 10 new schools, I have to call 100. That's just part of it. And that is the mathematical engineer, in me. I've also figured out, that um, instead of, you know, calling those 10 new schools, how can I take the 10 that I already have and offer them upsize? How can I McDonald's them? And again, that's engineering. Like, so instead of me just coming on and doing a poetry cafe, can I come on and do a workshop for you, with your kids before the poetry cafe? I work with schools, so can I come to your university and work with your entrepreneurship class? The poetry cafe is also a radio show. Can I come and work with your broadcasting communication students? Right. So now, this past year, I've started selling the packages to the universities as a artist in residence. Like, I'll come in and spend a week at your campus. This is what I can offer you. I can help teach in 4 or 5 classes, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And on Tuesday and Thursday, I'll do some workshops after hours. I will do some radio stuff with your kids. I will give you some radio shows from my collection that you can run on your show, on your campus station. And I will do the Poetry Cafe finale event with your students. If you want, we'll record it. We'll give you a copy of it, give you the audio and the video. And, if you want a finished product, I have a lab that can, create MP3s, and each student can have a CD with their work on it, So sometimes, working with what you got and figuring out how to upsize the client versus, calling new clients is the ordeal. And that's, again, is engineering. That's figuring out how you can take what you got and use the same work to get another dollar. So engineering is definitely part of how I think and operate when it comes to my poetic business. I think at the end of the day, art is like music. Music is art. It brings people together. It's a form of communication. It's the way that we're able to express ourselves to the world. And I don't think we're looking to inspire, the world or change the world. We make our piece of art. It was for us. And then again, with people seeing it and accepting it, it becomes something else. But so many times, I think the greatest thing for artists is to create something, sit it out there, and then see how people interpret it. And it can be something completely different than why I wrote the poem, but they get a completely different interpretation from it depending on their life's experiences. And that may give me another idea to start another project. And so I think it's a give and take. So you allow people to evaluate your work, and then lots of times you're able to get inspired and do something else, from that. Or they show you a different way you could use that piece of work. And so I think the biggest reason that we make art is, again, for self, as a way to connect to other people. So I don't think anybody makes art and doesn't want to share it. I'm an artist, so I guess I'm a little biased, but I mean, art makes the world go round. Um, there's no facet of your life that does not include art. Period. From your very first birthday card You opened up, there was a poetic verse on the inside. Um, from the prayers that you say at night, that your parents taught you, to the dinner table prayers, to your favorite song you get up to in the morning, um, to the clothes you wear. Somebody designed them, to the art on your walls. Like, so from music, to clothing, the way that you speak, your vernacular, lots of times is defined by the genre of music that you like, which again is art. So there's no part of the world that art does not reach or does not touch. That's a good question. What is the question I always wish people would ask me? Well, I guess it depends, on where I am. I think to be honest, some of the best questions are the ones you didn't expect. Are the ones you had no idea they were going to ask you at all. Um, yeah, I'll tell you a story. So I teach again, in a lot of schools here in Guilford County and across the region. And I got a chance year before last to perform with the um, the symphony. They have a grant, and they perform for every third and fourth grader in the city. And they asked me to collaborate with them. And so I got a chance to perform some poetry, with the symphony on a stage, like 4 or 5 different times over like a week, and they just kind of spun the kids in. Um, and some of them recognized me, some I've seen before. Some wanted autographs and some wanted high fives, and uh, of course, the very next week I had to go back, to my regular routine of going back into schools, and so I went to my next school and was in a classroom with some students, and they were excited to do poetry, and I was like, "Wow, why are you all so excited?" And they were like, "We got a chance to go to the symphony, and we saw this guy and he was doing poetry," and they were like singing the song. There's like Poetry, it's poetry. And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Where y'all learn?" I was like, "It was at the symphony, you know." This poet was doing all this stuff, and it was like, and his name was like uh, Mr. Thompson or Josephus or something like that. They was like, "Do you know him?" So that's like the best question ever. Like, I was like, "Oh, I think I've met him once, twice. I think I know that guy." But yeah, had no idea, that it was me. But I think that's one of the best questions I ever got asked. Um, from kids, that have no idea. They asked me, did I know myself? And I was like, wow, I don't know. Maybe, obviously, I don't. Maybe I'm at a loss here. But yeah, that was cool. And that same week, another kid came in, and I'm typically there for the entire day, for a week, so I get to see first, second, third block kids. And what's cool is the momentum builds because if they enjoy it, they're gonna tell their friends or whatever. And so they never remember my name. I stopped introducing myself because it doesn't matter. It's about the lesson and the art that they're getting from it. And one kid came in to the class. He ran to me and he was like, "Hey!" I was like, "Hey!" He was like, "Are you the poetry man?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I am, man." Like, all of my friends were telling me about you. The poetry man is here. And then he was like, "I didn't think you were real." I was like, "What am I, the Easter bunny or something?" Like, so yeah, those are some of the greatest questions that, I can think of, you know. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the world would be a pretty dull place without art. I think art is the expression of the human experience. I should write that down. Art is the expression of the human experience.